The Board of Trustees of the Town of Buena Vista. Can I have roll call, please?
Like, Paula, you're on mute. Paula's not on mute, but you may want to dial in, Paula, on a phone. I can do roll call real quick. What do you think, Mayor?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, she's told me to roll call. All right, Trustee Fay.
Here.
Trustee Rowe.
Here.
Trustee Swisher.
Here.
Trustee Nyberg.
Here.
Trustee Eckstein.
Here.
Trustee Volpe.
Here.
You have a quorum. And Mayor Lacy.
I'm here. Thank you. Would you all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Mike, will you
allegiance.
mute all?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, trustees, before you have the agenda, and we're looking for to adopt the agenda. Are there any questions or comments on the agenda?
Nick.
Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Norm.
Second.
Second, Swisher. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda passes. Next is the consent agenda. Are there any questions or comments on the consent agenda? I had just made a note. There were some really good things in Dean's report about what's been going on at the school and how they're being recognized, and I think that's really great. I would entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Libby.
I'll second that.
A second row. Further discussion? You know, Philip, I would like to have roll call vote on that. Is Paula, are you in now?
I can do that.
Okay.
Trustee Rowe.
Yes.
Trustee Fay.
Yes.
Trustee Swisher.
Yes.
Trustee Nyberg.
Yes.
Trustee Eckstein.
Yes.
And Trustee Volpe.
Yes.
Thank you all very much. Next item on the agenda is public comment. I remind everybody that you can, if you're on your phone, press *9, and the host will prompt you to mute or unmute and turn on to speak. You may also log in to and actually put something on the chat if you have a question and answer. Do they still have the opportunity to raise their hand, Philip?
Correct.
Yes, they do. There's a
There's a
raise your
raised
hand button.
hand.
Yep.
Correct. A raise hand button at the bottom.
Yep.
You can see over in the participants list, you can see the panelists and the attendees. So if somebody was raising their hand, it would show up in that list.
And I am not seeing anything.
Okay. I'm not seeing
Okay.
any chat either.
Okay, I close that portion of public comment. First item on the agenda is a business item, a presentation from the Southern Colorado Economic Development District on the 5-year update of the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. We welcome Michael Yerman. And Philip, are you going to lead into this, or Michael just going straight forward?
You know what? I probably wouldn't do Michael justice on this. It's him back in a BV board meeting. For those of you that remember Michael, he was the town planner back in 2012 timeframe, if I'm not mistaken. So he's got a new role, and we invited him to come share what's going on and how it can impact the town.
So most importantly, is the PowerPoint showing correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, Philip and Mayor Lacey, thank you so much for having me back. It's good to be. Unfortunately, I'm not in Buena Vista tonight. I wish I was. It'd be great to be back in Buena Vista. I am currently working for the Southern Colorado Economic Development District as the disaster recovery planner for Lake County, Chaffey County, Fremont, and Custer County. Funded through the EDA, the Economic Development Administration, for basically an 18-month contract through the CARES Act. What prompted this little career change and why I'm here tonight is I'm studying to get an MPA from the University of Colorado, and I had the opportunity to assist our communities during this time of crisis. So I basically added about 6 months onto my degree, but was able to stop eating ramen noodles, what I keep telling everybody, and have a career again for a little bit. But this is a good cause, and this is really really important thing that we all need to be focused on, because right now I know everyone is focused on what's happening currently with COVID, and you should be. But my job and my task is to set us forward the next 5 years on the path to recovery. So the CARES Act, as everyone knows, was a $2.2 million, trillion dollar budget decision, fiscal budget decision by federal government that was done in a 5-day period. It was the largest government expenditure ever done in the history of the United States, including inflation. And I am funded through a grant to assist with economic development, and I'll get into what I'm here for, which is to prepare a comprehensive economic development strategy. Believe it or not, it's done every 5 years on Chaffey County's behalf. But this year is a little interesting because we are reaching out not just to the counties, but to each municipal government to ensure that the project's priorities and policies for economic development are incorporated. And the short and simple of this is it's basically a plan with a project list. If your projects are on it, the good news is that you are in the queue for funding. The bad news is if you're not on the list, I hate to say it, but you're going to automatically have a negative check mark going in any grant cycle with the federal government, and quite a few redistributed grants from the feds to the states. So my intention here is to work really closely with each municipality to ensure that your budget priorities for the next 5 years are well represented on this plan. And we'll talk about how I'm going to do that in a brief moment. But the real quick overview, the Southern Colorado, sorry, it's a lot of words. The Southern Colorado Economic Development District was founded in 1968. We represent 13 counties. You can see all the counties, but basically Lake County all the way to Baca County on the Oklahoma-Kansas border. Huge region, and traditionally has been only represented by an executive director. We were the whole Economic Development District was actually founded in 1965 by the Public Works and Economic Development Act, which created the EDAs in the EDA. But there's really 4 key tasks that as SCED and as myself as a representative to you that we're responsible for in your community. Our first is the economic development strategy. Again, I'll get into that in a little bit more depth. We do EDA grants. Those are highly competitive grants, but those are really when we work like an intersection, interchange. There's quite a few. I know there's been some thoughts on stuff around the airport, and everything north of 162 is in an opportunity zone outside of the town from Gregg Drive south. So there are definitely some things that are lurking out there for us to assist with. Also, the other big piece of the puzzle that we do assist with is technical and planning assistance. I will say this, Shelby County is in a unique circumstance compared to some of the other counties I've talked to, and the fact that you guys have planners on staff. A lot of the communities I'm dealing with don't have a planner, and we are really lending a hand there. So I think Shelby County is in a really good place on the technical assistance. So certainly willing to assist in any way I can. One of the big things that I've taken on in my recent career is affordable housing. And I've already been talking with the county about how to be cued in on some of those larger discussions, as I know housing is a priority throughout the county. Here's your staff that you're looking at. Like I said, there's an executive director, Eric Goldberman, and then we have 3 disaster recovery planners, Brent, Bob, and myself. We are spread out throughout the southeastern corner of the state. Bob represents Huerfano, Los Animas. Brent has that whole Great Plains region. I actually spent the entire weekend out there working on a recreation master plan for Great Plains recreation area out there in Kiowa County. A lot of land out there, not a lot of people, but it's great. It's a great place to represent. So what we offer, again, the comprehensive economic development survey preparation, which is what I'm going to get into and why I'm here tonight. Planning, technical assistance, community profile preparation. That's actually pretty key to studying the matrix of what has happened with COVID. So this is kind of my big ask of staff, is to provide me with the data. And the biggest thing is going to be looking at revenues and making the compelling argument that we need funding for Chaffee County in certain ways. And then grant preparation. We are also seeing a big need across the entire region for broadband. And we are trying to cue in. Governor Poulos just instituted a task force, and we are cued in on that. Broadband is a really tough nut because it's a private utility. So we'll continue to monitor that. And I will say that Chaffee County, kudos to you and everyone in the county, has made great strides on broadband. I think Chaffee County has done an excellent job on that. Attainable housing, as I touched into, that's really a role that I'm coming into. COVID relief efforts, I'm working with local businesses on things I can help with, and also starting to attend all the task force meetings. Again, our goal is not to reinvent the wheel, but to plug in. Filling underserved business financing niches, so those are SBA loans. And again, going back to the grant writing, that is really something that we see as a major need in a lot of the communities across the state that we represent. So we are funded very easily by county memberships. So Chaffee County pays in to a yearly due. We get EDA grants. That's how I'm funded this next 18 months. We are fee for service. So there are potentials like I'm currently developing a master plan, those type of things. We try to not compete as a consultant. We try to fill in the niche that's needed for local governments. We understand that there are certain things like a transportation plan or comp plan that is something that some communities might hire a big fancy consulting firm. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to assist in, for instance, preparing an RFP for a housing development, the smaller stuff, or participating in preparing a grant for a small GOCO grant or a large GOCO grant. But we're not trying to compete at the consultant level. We're trying to fill that niche where communities don't have the expertise to get there to the end, but we'll be in the middle. And then we also do loan origination, which is the SBA program, where we get some financing fees from getting the loan origination. we also, beyond the feds, are tied into everybody at the state. And that's important because these are probably names, and as you look at the screen, are the people that you recognize a little bit more. And the EDA tends to funnel the money down to these organizations. And so we're watching the money go to these organizations and watching them go out to you as a community. So DOLA, GOCO, the Office of Economic Development, International Trade, that's one, those are really our three. The USDA on the Eastern Plains, CHAFA is a big one. We have board members, executive board members that are on CHAFA. The Southern Colorado Innovation, what's the L? And then Wendell at your local, the Small Business Alliance, and then Wendell is definitely my liaison to you 99% of the time. So what does it say? So this is why I'm here tonight. Every 5 years, we update the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. It's a strategy driven for economic development. But really, the way I look at it is to try to cut to the chase is a prioritized list of projects, policies, and programs. And that's what over the next year is what I'm going to be trying to drag out of your staff, drag out of the elected officials, to try to make sure that all those projects are well represented so that when it comes time to ask for the big ask or the big grant, we're ready and prepared. And when they say, has this been thought of? Is this a brand new idea? No, it's in this plan. It's basically, again, what's really interesting is that the disaster recovery portion of this has become front and center on the EDA with natural disasters like wildfires that you guys saw a few years back, and now with COVID, which is a national disaster. And just to give a real quick idea of what kind of funding we're talking about, the state went from $30 million in funding to $130 million in funding overnight with the CARES Act. And literally like that, the top 8 projects that were on the EDA's list went from a 50-50 match to an 80-20 match when we're funded. So being on these lists during these times is really critical to make sure that we're prioritizing what Buena Vista and Chaffee County needs. And that's really where the new niche and where the federal government has pushed the EDA in recent years. So as we talk about where I'm going and what I'll be leading you through and the next time you'll see me. So this is the process over the next year. So the first thing I'm going to do tonight is what I'm doing right now is give you a presentation. On the back end though, I'm going to ask you to complete a 10 to 15 minute survey. It's a very high level North Arrow survey because we represent so many different places that we want to make sure that we're focusing in on things that Chaffee County wants. So my goal was the first time I sit down with the group of elected officials and everyone that I at least know what the heck I'm talking about. And I also know what your priorities are. And at a 30,000 foot level, know that I'm not talking about, drought resistance for agricultural wheat, right, in Chaffee County. Whereas in Kiowa County, that's a huge issue. So those are the kind of questions you're going to see in this survey. It's also going to ask you about COVID and those types of things, which are really important. Again, it's to get that 30,000 foot and to give the people that are going to be working intimately on the SWOT analysis to have the North Arrow. Discovery is what I'm doing outside of the box, which is meeting with Philip and the staff to really talk about your budget and what things you guys need. Community profiles is me doing the data crunching and the nerdy thing of sitting on the computer every day when I have free time, pulling up census data, traffic counts, you name it, school enrollment, those types of things. The next big step though is when I'm going to need some community participation from a trustee. That will be in between March and May. We're going to be, because we have 13 counties, we're going to be taking one county at a time and doing these SWOT analysis. So I don't want to ask for volunteer tonight, but we will be coming back to Buena Vista and through Philip, and he'll probably have it as a consent agenda item. Ask for one of you to attend 2 regional meetings to assist in the larger discussion of making sure that that priority list is refined. That's going to be a really big step in this process. So it's kind of why I'm here tonight. The final thing will be the final presentation. I would love to come back if I'm invited, if I haven't talked too much tonight, and present the final plan and make sure that the priorities I heard from the focus group and heard through the survey are well represented. And then our actual board adopts a plan and submits it to the EDA on Chaffee County's behalf. So the final slide, next steps. all we're going to ask for tonight is to click on this link here in my presentation. It's also in the memo in your packet. And the easiest way to also to do it is just to go to sked.com, and there's a box on our website to take that. I know it's surveys. I really appreciate your participation in that. And then also we will be looking to the trustees for a volunteer in March through April, someone that might have some free time to attend 2 meetings to ensure that we're honing in on what's important. So that's my presentation for tonight. I hope I didn't exceed my 10 minutes.
Thank you, Michael. Trustees, do you have any questions for Michael at this point? I just wanted to relay that link is on page 35 of the packet. So you can just click on there, go in and do the survey. And we're expecting great things from you, Michael.
I was super excited when this position came about because I came from Crested Butte, and be able to be back in the Arkansas Valley again and to do good work is something I'm pretty excited about right now. So, especially at a time like this.
That's for sure. And it was great to see that you were coming back too. It was good. Does anybody have any questions at this point for Michael? Okay. I don't see any hands up or anything. Thanks, Michael. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mayor Laracy.
Next item on the agenda is should the Board of Trustees approve adoption of ordinance number 16, series 2020, entitled an ordinance repealing and reenacting Article 4 of Chapter 6 of the Buena Vista Municipal Code concerning medical and retail marijuana businesses and amending the town's zoning regulations to include medical and retail marijuana as permitted uses in certain zone districts. Is Mark taking this, Philip, or are you going to start out?
Who wants the hot potato? I guess I'll intro it. I think Paula, you're back on with a yes, maybe?
Yes, can you hear me on my phone?
Yes,
Yes.
You sound great.
And I may be able to still get back on through the computer through the Zoom meeting.
Okay, well, we can hear you loud and clear, so that's good on the phone too.
Okay.
And I know Jeff can speak to this as well. Paula, do you want to talk to this, or would you like me to intro it?
You can go ahead and intro it, and I'll contribute where needed.
Okay. All right. So before you, this first ordinance, number 16, is the ordinance that was drafted with the board's direction prior to the election, and we've kept it as the final draft was approved when the board put the question on the ballot by resolution. So all of the details of the ordinance remain the same as we left them in terms of distance, number of licenses, things like that. So we can go through that if the board wants to go through the details again, or if we need to talk about any of those components that were put in place. Paula has filled in some of the details specific to the process. So if you remember, the ordinance actually outlines what the license process entails. So Paula has put in some of the dates and details for that, which we can talk about. I will say that we've had quite a few people reach out. Paula, I think you were up for 13, is that correct?
13 as of this afternoon. And some of those already have existing retail marijuana businesses. Some of them, it would be a new adventure for them to go into the retail marijuana business.
So people have found out about the vote in November, and they are eager to jump into our process to apply for that second license. So I will pause there. Jeff or Paula, anything you want to highlight for now?
Well, from my perspective, we've been through the ordinance a fair amount. I don't have anything to really add about the ordinance itself. Ultimately, I think we mentioned this at one of the last meetings where this is the ballot question passed that basically answered the question whether or not the board should adopt this draft of the ordinance. It's not a mandatory ballot question. It was an advisory question. So as I mentioned to the board before, the board has the option of adopting this version, which is the version that the electors were looking at when they voted on that ballot question, not adopting it or making revisions to it. And my recollection of your conversation was that at least most of the board members, I thought, felt like they wanted to adopt the version that was basically referred to the voters to consider with the advisory question. But the law doesn't require that, just so you know. So that's really all I really had to offer there. And just as a note, this wouldn't go into effect until 30 days after publication. And then there's a whole process for accepting applications, reviewing applications. It probably takes up to about 6 months. So you ultimately, if you adopted this now, you would probably have an operating business at sometime halfway on through 2021.
Thank you, Jeff. Paula, anything you want to highlight?
I don't really have anything much more to add besides what Jeff had said. I did do kind of a timeline as far as when phase 1 applications would be accepted, and that would be for the second license. And that would not be able to even start the acceptance process until January 6th of 2021. Ascend Cannabis, who already has one of the stores, they would not be able to apply for their license until the ordinance went into effect, which goes into effect if you were to adopt this ordinance tonight on January 3rd. And then they would have to go through the town licensing process as well as the state. So as Jeff said, it is going to be well into 2021 before we see any store up and running.
And Paula, if you want to make any note about the fee structure that we're looking at for the application process.
Well, Philip and I have been reviewing fees, and we've been comparing what some of the other what other municipalities in the area charge for retail licensing and things. As far as the phase 1 application that we're looking at, and that would be for any business or person who is looking at doing a retail marijuana shop, we were looking at possibly, depending on board's approval, a $750 non-refundable application fee. The phase 2 application fee, and that would be for the entity that was selected during the lottery process. We are looking at comparing to the other stores, the other municipalities in our area, and we were looking at Leadville. They charge a $2,500 application fee. Businesses are required to pay a fee to the state for their applications, and that fee is $4,500 to the state and a $2,500 application fee to the municipality, along with the fees for the background checks.
And that would be something we set with the fee schedule as well that the board would have on December 8th.
Correct.
Okay. So I think with that, board, we'll turn it over to you for discussion.
Hey, trustees, questions? Go ahead, Devin.
Thanks for bringing this forward. I think before I say anything else, I want to thank the electors for voting for this. And I feel as this is the ordinance that was referred in the ballot measure, that this is the ballot that we should approve. I see that Mark wants to speak to the map for a minute. So I'll let him speak, but then I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you,
Hey,
Devin.
Mark, go ahead.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. In the draft ordinance on page 48, there are some location restrictions. Particularly, I just want to bring your attention to number 2 in paragraph C, which says within 500 feet of any alcohol or drug treatment facility. The map that is in the packet reflects our best knowledge at this point regarding a drug or treatment facility for valley-wide health clinics. We do need to confirm that, but the map might be slightly altered if they've not applied for their alcohol or drug treatment facility licensing with the state. So that is one item I just want to bring to your attention. On the north side of Highway 24 on the map, Valleywide, which is just north of Elkhorn, is shown as a potential spot. If they're not a licensed facility by a certain date, we will remove that portion of that map.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
And Devin, you have the floor.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 16.
Thank you, Devin. We have a motion on the floor.
I'll second Volpe.
Second, Volpe. Thank you, Dave. Further discussion?
I have one more question.
Go ahead, Libby.
I think we've covered this before, Jeff, but I just wanted to be sure. On page 52, under sales tax, it talks about that they will remit all applicable town sales taxes. What about the state sales tax? Is that covered by the Colorado marijuana code?
Yeah, I mean, that's a state requirement. They still have to submit their sales taxes to the state like any other sales taxpayer.
And our regular sales tax for the town, are they going to submit that through the state as well?
Yes.
Okay, and the special sales tax they remit directly to us?
That's right.
Okay, and is it covered under this, is it covered adequately under 6-145? The special sales tax?
I think it is. It's all applicable town sales taxes, so that would include special, regular, everything.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Libby. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Cindy.
The fees that they have to pay to apply and their licensing fees, they seem quite a bit higher than alcohol license fees. Should they be higher than alcohol license fees?
And I can respond quickly from a legal perspective, is that, you know, your fees generally have to be related to the cost of administering a license or reviewing an application. So I normally do see that the marijuana licensing fees are higher because they generally involve more work for review. If you look at the application process here, it definitely is relatively intense. So I think it would be justified. And if you look across the state, you'll find that they are generally higher than alcohol licensing fees. So I'm not overly concerned by that, but it's a good question.
Thank you.
And
Thank you,
Cindy, one
Cindy.
of the things with, excuse me, one of the things with the marijuana licensing, it also involves the police department as far as doing background checks, the planning department as far as the building structure, a security plan that has to be reviewed by the police department, an alarm plan. You know, there's a lot of different facets to a marijuana license that is much more intense than the liquor license. And basically it's based on security.
Thank you.
And the plan reviews.
Does anybody else have a question or comment? So we have a motion and a second on the table. I will do a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Eckstein,
Yes.
Trustee Fay,
Yes.
Trustee Nyberg, Trustee Nyberg, Trustee Rowe,
Yes.
Trustee Swisher,
No.
Trustee Glope,
Yes.
and Trustee Nyberg.
No.
Okay, thank you. Let the record show it was a 4-2 vote in favor of ordinance number 16. Thank you, trustees. Next item on the agenda is should the Board of Trustees approve adoption of ordinance number 17, series 2020, entitled an ordinance adding a new section 4-73.5 to the Town of Buena Vista Municipal Code levying a special tax on retail marijuana sales. Are you going to lead this one, Philip?
Jeff, do you want to highlight what this is? It's pretty straightforward, but
Yeah, no, absolutely. So
thank you.
this is the actual implementation of the special sales tax on retail marijuana. So when the electors pass the ballot question under Tabor, you still have to actually implement the tax. And the way to do that is by adopting an ordinance, implementing the tax as part of your code. And so this just basically takes the approval of the electors and then effectuates it by passing a provision in your code imposing the special sales tax on marijuana. And right now, it's set to be 5% because that was the initial amount set in the ballot question. But you have authority to decrease or increase that between 0 and 10%. 10%, is that right, Philip?
Yeah. 15, I think, maybe.
15, okay, yeah, for a second there. Yeah, between 0 and 15%, sorry. But I put it at 5 because that's what the original question anticipated.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, Paula?
I have no comment.
Okay, thank you. Trustees, any questions? I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 17.
Thank you, Devin.
Second.
Second, Faye. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Eckstein,
Yes.
Trustee Fay,
Yes.
Trustee Nyberg,
Yes.
Trustee Rowe,
Yes.
Trustee Swisher,
No with the comment. I think it's an unfair tax. No.
Trustee Glope.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, trustees. Let the record show it's a 5-1 vote in favor of ordinance number 17. Thank you all trustees. Thank you staff. Step in the right direction so that we can get this behind us. Next item on the agenda is a proclamation policy discussion. It has been brought forward questions as to how we approve proclamations, how we go through there. So Philip, do you want to lead into that or?
Sure. So bringing this back at the request of the board, it's intended to be a discussion, really ultimately deciding if the board wants to establish a new policy or a different procedure. And as the mayor stated, this has to do with proclamations that come to the board, and I put together a memo on page 59. It just kind of summarizes what these are and typically what we see throughout the year. Many of them are repeats from year to year, things like Arbor Day, Youth Appreciation, ATV Color Tour, and then every once in a while we'll recognize a staff member or an advisory board member. So This year we recognized Chief Jimmy Tidwell. We recognized Mal Sillers from the Airport Advisory Board through a proclamation. And staff did not find a whole lot of reference from other municipalities about a documented policy. From discussions I had with places like Salida, typically they handle it like we do. And so in the packet, you will see that that's handled. Generally, it's a request that comes to myself. Sometimes they'll come to the mayor. Sometimes they'll come to the clerk, and we will evaluate what they're requesting. If it's something that's brand new, the town administrator will talk with the mayor to determine whether it's appropriate. If it's something that's pretty questionable, it doesn't align with our collective vision statement or other stated priorities, then we may have a little bit more back and forth with the requester. I think maybe once or twice, the mayor has decided not to pursue a proclamation because it didn't align. But typically, again, it's things that are either coming from within the community or they align with things that we recognize as important. An example of that is the League of Women Voters came to us this year. They were celebrating their 100th anniversary, and they do a lot within the community. So that one did get approved and was read before a board meeting. So under the analysis, I found what I felt was a good definition of what a proclamation is. And so you can see that there. The main thing that I caught from that definition is it's typically a statement of benefit to the local community, whether that's a nonprofit organization that's trying to draw awareness, or even a business that's offering a service within the community, drawing attention to that. It's non-binding. It's not a policy endorsement necessarily by the board. So I felt like that definition helped frame what these are. So in terms of, if the board has, if they want to have a little bit more oversight in what comes forward as a proclamation, the main idea that I could come up with was pre-approving a proclamation, the meeting before it would be read, and that would allow the board to kind of weigh in and decide as a board whether they supported it or not. The main drawback to that is we typically get these, pretty time sensitive. Usually it's, hey, it's mid-November or it's the latter part of November, and it's, Boy Scout month. Really bad example there, but anyway. And so we don't have the opportunity to take it through 2 meetings. So that would be one drawback. But of course, if that's something the board wants to do, then people that come forward with those requests would need to adapt. So that's what we've got for you for the discussion. I'll turn it over to the board to take it forward and see what you would like to do with it.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Cindy.
It says on here that you decide whether it's appropriate. Are there very many that you have ever turned down and not read?
No, Duff, if you want to share, I think maybe we've had one in 4 years.
I was going to say it hasn't, and the one was most recent, as a matter of fact, that I recall. Pretty much we're pretty flexible and pretty open, but we also don't get, let's say, questionable ones where we're proclaiming support for something like a movement or whatever it is of something that may be construed that the town is supporting their cause. It's more of pointing out something, just as Philip said, with an individual or a group, as how good they are. And so, like I say, the ones that we look at a little closer are the ones that try to get us to pull us in to add support for a cause.
I would be willing to vote as a trustee, whether I wanted it in there or not, if that is what you want, but I truly trust your judgment on what would be appropriate and what wouldn't be.
Thank you, Cindy. Anybody else have comment, question?
I would trust Philip in your judgment, Jeff.
Thank you, Norm. Anybody else have a comment?
I'd just like to say, yeah, I definitely trust your judgment. First of all, I think that we need a policy that states the process so that we don't get caught with something inappropriate. And then the one that caught me, that made me bring this up was the Suicide Prevention or Suicide Awareness Month, that we made a proclamation or a statement, and honestly, it just felt like empty words to me. It didn't feel like town was doing anything about it because we weren't. And I think that there needs to be a supplemental page of where this proclamation came from, or where a resource can be that this issue, whatever the proclamation is, where individuals in the community can find assistance with whatever the proclamation that we're making is, if that makes any sense.
And it does, Dave. I appreciate that. And I think Philip captures that when you look at the goal of the proclamation is to recognize and celebrate the extraordinary achievements of residents and nonprofit organizations, to honor occasions of importance and significance to residents. So I think he catches that. I agree with you. If it's dead in the water, why are we holding it out there in front of the people? And I think that's kind of what you're saying. We need to support it if that's what we're going to do. That does make sense. Any other comments? I appreciate the fact that that we all believe that obviously administration staff can look at this and we can make a decision logically. Just for time's sake and putting more on the plate for the board just doesn't make sense. I think it's something that obviously Philip and myself can look at and make decisions on. So I appreciate that flexibility. I think it will help. So if anybody's in favor of that or not in favor of that, let us know. So Philip, it sounds like we'll try to point anything that comes at it to this proclamation that you've got there on page 60, that paragraph. We'll make sure it gets encompassed in that. And then if there's any question, we'll just kick it back and forth between ourselves and go from there.
Sounds good. I captured that. We can actually add that definition in a policy. And then it sounds like it would be beneficial or desirable if it is an organization that's providing a service or drawing awareness to something, to make sure in the proclamation, if they've got a source for more information, we can request that they include that. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it does. Trustees, would somebody make a motion to have staff draw up a policy on this and get this in writing for future reference?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Norm. Second, Faye. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, thank you very much. That sounds good, Philip. I think
Thank you.
Good direction. Next item on the agenda is, should the Board of Trustees approve adoption of ordinance number 18, series 2020, entitled An Ordinance of the Town of Buena Vista, Colorado, amending Chapter 4, Article 3 of the Buena Vista Municipal Code, creating a marijuana special revenue fund. Philip?
Michelle, are you on? Seen her yet? All right. Well, I will cover it then.
I can jump in there too, Phil, if you want.
Okay. Yeah. It's pretty self-explanatory. So, as Michelle alluded to at the previous budget public hearing, at the direction of or the support of the board, we are going to add 2 new funds to our accounts, or to our budgeting, I guess you would say. The first one here is a special revenue fund for our our special revenue for on marijuana that the board just passed by ordinance. So this would allow us to track the revenues and expenses in a separate fund. It would allow the town to easily identify what those revenues are and also plan for future expenses as well. I think the intent, and Michelle would speak to it as well, is that we would use this, and as the town plans for specific use of these funds that align with the language on what was passed on the during the election, we would transfer, if it's for capital improvements, for example, in a particular year, we would transfer from this fund into the capital improvement fund for very specific projects. So again, just allowing the board in the town over time to track and make sure that we have an idea of what these revenues are and what going to in terms of expense. So Jeff, anything you want to add?
All right, hitting the mute button there. And no, that's perfect.
Trustees, do you have any questions for Philip or Jeff? Go ahead, Amy.
Is something like this required by law so you can kind of trace the money since it's a ballot initiative?
The answer is basically yes, because the way the ballot approved expenditure of the actual tax dollars requires that they be segregated. And the town's practice in the past has been to create these special funds by ordinance. So they're in your code, they're approved by the board, and then Michelle can set up the funds separately.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions? I would entertain a motion to either approve or deny, or approve and amend with amendments.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 18.
Thank you, Devin.
I'll second that.
Second, Faye. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Eckstein,
Yes.
Trustee Fay,
Yes.
Trustee Nyberg,
Yes.
Trustee Rowe,
Yes.
Trustee Swisher,
Yes.
Trustee Swisher, Trustee Blope. Trustee Blope,
I think we lost him.
I believe he had to drop.
okay.
Okay. Let the record show that it did pass with a 5 quorum of 5. It sounds like Volpe, we lost him in his adventure. Sounds like. Okay, Philip, we're in a public hearing on budget now.
I think we have one more, right? Ordinance number 19.
And oh, I'm sorry, I missed that one. You're good, I jumped right over it. Should the Board of Trustees approve adoption of ordinance number 19, series 2020, entitled An Ordinance of the Town of Buena Vista, Colorado, amending Chapter 4, Article 3 of the Buena Vista Municipal Code, creating an all-hazard response fund.
Right, I will take this one. So again, very similar to what we just did there for the special sales tax on marijuana. Michelle and staff recommended that we separate out our all hazard response revenues and expenses. So just to try to tie in terminology. So this has been called incident response, wildland program. Staff has decided to come up with a consistent terminology moving forward, all hazard response fund. That way, whether it's supporting wildland or flooding or other types of disasters that are going on, it would cover all of those, essentially. Wildland is what we've traditionally supported through this effort. So this has been tracked in our general fund to date. And what we've talked about with the board during the budget cycle is to clean up our general fund, especially under our fire department. We are moving all of the all hazard response expenses and revenue into its own fund, so that again we can easily identify what the fund balance is for that and what the projection is from year to year. And then once again, similar to what we do with the Conservation Trust Fund for recreation type capital improvements, we can transfer from this fund into the capital improvement fund when we need to do things like buy a fire truck or make improvements on the fire station. So this ordinance establishes that as a new fund.
Okay, thank you, Philip. Questions for Philip on this one? Comments? If you have something, Libby, go ahead.
Yeah, this is just mostly out of curiosity, but if we required mutual aid from another entity like Chafee Fire or the state, and we had an expense that we had to pay them, would it run through this account or would it run through our general fund?
General fund.
Thank you.
Yes, good question. Typically, if we get into a large enough incident, yeah, we will be running from our general fund, and then if it moves up in the size of the disaster, it moves up to the, as you know, the county and then the state, and so this fund really wouldn't come into play. However, there is no limitation for how the town can utilize these funds. So if it did need to go to replenish our general fund, the town could do so.
So when I look at this, Philip, it looks like it's more of just a revenue fund is the way we're classifying it. Okay, thank you. Other questions for Administrator Puckett? Okay, item F, I would entertain a motion to approve or deny ordinance number 19 or approve with amendments.
I'll make a motion and we approve ordinance number 19.
Thank you, Norm.
I'll second that.
Second, Fay. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Eckstein,
Yes.
Trustee Fay,
Yes.
Trustee Nyberg,
Yes.
Trustee Rowe,
Yes.
Trustee Swisher.
Yes.
Thank you all very much. You know, I really want to jump the next one, Philip, and go straight to canceling the next meeting, but but I'll hang in there. We'll go with public hearing.
Okay.
Next item on the agenda is a public hearing of the 2021 budget. I open up this public hearing. Are you're winging it by yourself tonight, man?
I'm doing my best. Thank you all for your patience. We're all good. So as summarized here on Michelle's memo, Some of the things we just discussed are covered here. But now that we've established the 2 new funds for the marijuana special revenue and the all hazards response fund, Michelle assumed that those would be passed, so she's implemented those into ClearGov, and we have moved out. If you've looked at ClearGov in the last day or so, you'll notice that our general fund looks a little bit different because we've pulled out the expenses and revenues for the all hazard activity. Right now, we're using a placeholder for $275,000 for the all hazard fund. That is showing in our capital improvement fund. So it's showing as a transfer from the all hazard fund into the capital improvement fund for $275,000. Now that comes across as a revenue line in the CIP. And there's an offsetting expense for $275 for the fire station improvements that we've discussed about that came out of our facility assessment project. I want to emphasize that that is strictly a placeholder. Staff is still working on a better projection for that. I believe that we won't have quite that much fund balance to transfer, / we may not want to transfer that much specifically for the facility. So more to come on that. December 8th, our intent is to have a work session with our fire department to talk a little bit more specific about that. At that time, we will have a specific balance in the all hazard fund, and then we will propose how much we should allocate towards the facility improvements for next year. At the time of this memo, our general fund had a shortfall of about $8,800. We've actually balanced that. We actually are showing a surplus of about $5,000 now. So this is a little bit out of date. The way we were able to balance or come into a surplus on the general fund is Sean Williams and I went ahead and decided to convert our town engineer role that Al Smith had occupied. We transitioned from an employee to professional fees for both public works and our water fund. So, and we brought that expense down a little bit so that we could go ahead and balance the general fund. So as of now, things are balanced. We're not really needing to make any changes from staff perspective to adjust that. The board can certainly entertain changes through this process, but we are balanced. Let's see. Michelle just made note. Again, appreciate kind of the comments and discussions we've had in ClearGov. It has helped us catch a couple of things that weren't quite entered correctly. So one of those things came up in our street fund, and we had loaded, we have two projects that are kind of beyond what we typically do year to year in our street fund. You know, typically Sean and his team utilize that fund very well for our normal street maintenance and resurfacing and things like that. But we are doing some planning work. We have loaded a $60,000 project to get into the design and engineering work for intersection improvements at Highway 24 and Baylor and DePaul, and also potentially at Steel Drive. So that's loaded in there. And then we've gone ahead and carried over our sidewalk project off of Highway 24 that we just got the grant from CDOT for around the city market area. So just realizing that we're not going to spend those dollars in 2020, that project's been moved over into 2021. With that, let's see. Michelle, for public view and trustee reference, and she's loaded the full budget, more of the traditional spreadsheet view in the packet starting on 67. One other thing that was done since our last meeting is we did get in September 2020 actuals for sales tax. And so that allowed us to slightly tweak our projected revenue for 2021 for the last time for this cycle. So that was done as well. And I think that's it. I think those are the highlights of what changed from meeting to meeting. So I'll pause there. And hey, Michelle.
Hi. Michelle.
Oh my God. Anyways, I talked to Jack this morning, and there were some changes he made. He wanted to check with me and make sure he had the fund balance, which by the end of 2020, he's projected to have about $200,000, $196,000 in fund balance. And I've projected about $200,000 in fund balance before this change. And it's down at the, yeah, right there. So going into the year, 190,000. That's 12/31/20, and projected to end 21 with 217,000. So he has some pretty substantial issues going on at the airport, and he wanted to make sure he has the fund balance. And he did change it in ClearGov, but what he wants to do is take $20,000 from fund balance and redo the stucco on the outside of the airport terminal because it is really bad. And then we need to clean out and refurbish the fuel tanks. That's about $30,000. So I told them we do have the fund balance to cover that. They are quote unquote capital items, but they're really maintenance items that really just need to be done. So he did go ahead and enter that in ClearGov. It is not in the spreadsheet because we talked about that this morning and the spreadsheet was created last week. So if he were to do that and take it from fund balance, he'd have about 160,000 ending the year, about 160,000 in fund balance at the end of 2021. So, but you're right. After that, that's the last change since last meeting.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
And looking at ClearGov, it's still showing your projected surplus, Philip, of a little over 5,000. Okay.
For general fund.
Yes, for the general fund. Trustees, do you have any clarifying questions for Administrator Puckett or Treasurer Stoke, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Libby.
This is a question that I've talked about with Philip, and he said that it was all right for me to discuss it at the board meeting. We have this 1% of sales tax that we use for public support. And so what we have in there in the budget right now is $40,000 plus $800 fee to the community foundation. When you look at the revenue side for sales tax, if you add up the town sales tax and the county sales tax, you come up with 3.8 million. The question comes up with, how do you treat the $105,000 sales tax rebate that we give to True Value each year? We got a couple more years on that. So in the calculation of the 40,000, that 105 has been added back to the sales tax revenues. And it's my contention that it really should be subtracted from the sales tax revenues. it makes a difference of only $2,000. But I think we ought to know why we're calculating it one way or the other. Since
Right.
we're not able to keep it, then it seems to me that it should reduce the amount of sales tax on which the 1% is calculated.
That is certainly a call that the board can make. I think the way we calculated was simply on revenues, not on the deductions. So if you want us to calculate it, taking into account the sales tax rebate, we can certainly adjust that.
Trustees' comments?
I have
That
a
would make
comment.
sense to me, but
I have
Go
a
ahead,
comment.
Cindy. Yeah.
The 40,000 is an even good number. I believe that what we do with that 40,000 and how it's dispersed helps our community so much, and the town can't afford the extra 2,000.
So you're in favor of going ahead and keeping it the way it has been then, Cindy, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Anybody else have any comments?
so, I mean, I agree that the money goes to a good purpose. I'm certainly not trying to argue that, but I just feel like the 105 is going the wrong direction in the calculation.
It was calculated without regard to that 105 at all.
Yeah, I rounded up. Just, yeah, took 1%, and then knowing that, because we do this a couple of months ago when we pick kind of the initial number, because we work with the Chafee Foundation now, and so kind of not knowing where our final projection will end up. It was like 3.8, right? 3.9. So I rounded up to 4 million, so 40,000. So it was a roundup essentially, but no issue if the board wants to stick to us to a 1%, and then also take into account the sales tax rebate. So no worry from staff either way.
Trustees, any other comments?
I can see, Libby, I appreciate your, did you want me to?
Go ahead.
Someone else
Go ahead,
talk?
Amy. Go ahead, Amy.
Thanks, Mayor. Libby, I appreciate your financial oversight into this, and I can see wanting to have a proper, whichever way we do it, we should just do it, I think is kind of what you're saying. I think I'd be okay with just leaving that budget as is, and maybe for next year we can, I don't think anything else is paid out as a percentage, so I'd say if we could leave this as is for this year with the budget, and then make a decision for next year whether to include the rebate or not.
Thank you, Amy. Norm, do you have any thoughts?
No, I got to agree with Amy.
Okay. Devin, what do you think?
Yeah, I think as long as it's clear what's happening with that, I don't really have a problem either way. But I probably would. I think that's something we should look at next year. So I think that's fine.
Okay. Did we have, what did we do? We had an additional amount of money that we put into that anyway, didn't we? Because we fell short on our projection anyhow this last year.
Yeah, we started with a lower projection at the beginning of the budget cycle, and we never adjusted up. And so once we got into the year, the board added money to it.
Yes. Okay. And so I think at this stage, and I agree with you, Libby, I mean, one way or the other, we need to do something. But I think at this stage, it's kind of a projection just as such. And so that can be adjusted mid-year if that's what we're looking at. Especially the way we're going now, it always seems to be we're a little bit stronger. And I guess we're very lucky that we seem to be stronger. But I appreciate your input on that. And it makes sense one way or the other. But right now we've got it etched. So yeah.
I'll withdraw my objection to it. Thank you.
You're okay. All right, thank you for speaking up. Not a problem. Are there any other clarifying questions for Philip or Michelle? Okay, since this is a public hearing, I open up this portion of the hearing to public comment. I am looking at the list of attendees. If there's anyone who would like to make a comment on the budget, please raise your hand. Seeing none, I close this portion of the hearing of the public comment for the public hearing. Trustees, any deliberation? What thoughts on the budget? Anything that you have heartache with? Anything you see that we might need to change? I mean, obviously, we can't get a whole lot closer in that general fund than what we're talking about there. Anything that you see that you don't like in the budget, that you question? Anything you think that needs to be changed or added? Go ahead, Amy.
I think the budget looks great from what I can see. I did want to just note that I pulled the balance sheets for the last few years, and it's really nice to see the fund balance has increased every year. I think that shows a lot of discipline on behalf of staff and the board.
Thank you, Amy. Anybody else have any comments? So we are looking at this, obviously, if this is the way it goes and this is the way the board sees it, this would be the budget that we would adopt. And Philip, correct me if I'm wrong, we're looking at this at the next meeting. Am I correct?
That's correct. We will have for you for adoption at the next meeting. If there's anything that is adjusted, we'll make sure to notate that for the board to consider at the next meeting. Ideally, we're not looking at changing anything significant, but the board can certainly adjust before approval on the 8th. So that is okay too. And I guess I did want to highlight one other thing that did change, if that's okay, Mayor.
You bet.
We did find out since the last meeting that we did not receive the GOCO grant application. Pretty disappointed, bummed about that. Great application forward. However, we have another shot at it in the February cycle. So staff and advisory board and the other folks that were involved with helping with that grant, as well as the county who was contributing to that project with some funding, all are aligned with keeping it in the budget to make another go at it in February of 2021. If we're not successful at that point, then we can discuss how we want to adjust the budget accordingly. So that's one other thing that's happened since the last meeting.
And as you say, it's not a budget impact at this point in time. We're not changing anything. We're just keeping it as a placeholder for the next cycle. So that's perfect. Okay, trustees. I appreciate the fact that everybody or those who have comments are reaching out in ClearGov. That really helps a lot. I think the system works. It's very entertaining, Michelle.
Oh.
Okay,
I'm glad. It even puts me to sleep sometimes.
Well, I didn't say it didn't. I just said it was entertaining. So I would entertain a motion to continue the public hearing until the December, I believe it's December 8th meeting. Philip, is that correct? I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Norm.
Second.
Second, Faye. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you all very much. Motion passes. Thank you, Michelle and Philip. We're doing real good on the budget. Real good. Next
Thank
item
you.
on the agenda is cancellation of the Board of Trustees meeting scheduled for December 22nd, 2020. I don't know what discussion there's going to be, but there's going to be a discussion on the cancellation of a meeting for December 22nd.
Sounds good.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Norm. Second.
Second.
Next up.
Thank you, Devin. Okay, further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you all very much. Opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is staff reports. Philip, it looks like you're up.
All right, happy Turkey Week, everybody. I know it's a little bit different for everyone, but just want to start off by expressing my gratitude for our board and staff. You all do amazing things, and there's a lot of work that goes on behind this. And anyway, just appreciate sticking with it this year. It's been a tough one on a lot of people, and you all are appreciated. So thank you. Highlight a couple of key dates. I've mentioned it before. Just to reiterate, I'll be bringing in some folks from our fire department so that we can have a work session before the December 8th meeting to talk a little bit more specifics on the all hazard fund and kind of what that is, so you have a better understanding of what that entails and how it's administered. We'll talk a little bit about the facility capital project next year and some of the concepts around a reserve program to help bring in some additional staffing at a lower cost to supplement our paid staff. So looking forward to that discussion. And then Jack and Chandra from the airport are putting together another great full year report. If you all remember last year's report, it was fantastic analysis of the overall operations, the revenues and expenses, and then a deeper understanding of the impacts, at least financially, to the community from testing. So this year was very different testing wise than 2019. So it'll give a good understanding of what a light testing year looks like and how that results to our budget. So looking forward to that. And just to keep our sanity, we're not going to cram that in December. We'll do that in January. So looking forward to that. The first topic I have is an update on our relief funding, coronavirus relief funding. And I put together some words here. The great news is, since I wrote this report, I actually have even better news. The Chafee Foundation, in collaboration with the administrators and DOLA, has the green light to submit reimbursement for their expenses into the emergency response fund. So if you remember back early summer, the town contributed $33,000 to that emergency response fund that was going towards individuals and families directly impacted by COVID. Town submitted reimbursement and got reimbursement for our contribution, that $33,000, into that program. But Chafee Foundation put in upwards of $270,000 more on top of what the local governments put in. So they have the green light to submit reimbursement for that, for those expenses. So I'll let you kind of think what that does for next year with that fund rebuilt back up. For BV, it doesn't mean a huge contribution towards that reimbursement. We have roughly 10,000 left, but Chafee Foundation would get reimbursement from us. So we would contribute that, our remaining $10,000, and then the county and Salida would split the rest. So we feel like this is an outstanding opportunity to rebuild that fund, to reimburse the dollars that were contributed from local donors early in the pandemic, and will certainly help them with some much needed support next year. But again, the concept is reimbursing expenses that they spent for those efforts. So I'll pause there. I guess what I'm looking for is a motion or a head nod from the board. Are you comfortable with us working with the Chafee Foundation on our remaining $10,000 to go towards that effort or that reimbursement?
I would entertain a motion, please.
Motion to reimburse Chaffey County Community Foundation $10,000 from the Buena Vista COVID relief dollars. Is that correct?
Thank you. Yep. Thank you, Amy. We have a motion.
Second.
Second, Nyberg. Any further discussion? Let's do a roll call, please.
Trustee Eckstein,
Yes.
Trustee Fay,
Yes.
Trustee Nyberg,
Yes.
Trustee Rowe,
Yes.
Trustee Swisher.
Yes.
Great. Thank you all very much. Go ahead, Philip.
Thank you. Very exciting. The next one is our Chaffey Housing Authority Board appointments. So you have seen, we received two applications from within the community for our second board seat. Trustee Eckstein was volunteered for first seat, and the board supported that idea. So we're looking at that second seat. So we had two applications from Norma Cady and Joseph Teipel. Their redacted applications are in the packet following my report here. So what I'm looking for, and I've proposed a couple of options here. If the board has an idea of who they would like to fill that second seat, I'll take that direction tonight, and we can go ahead and draft up the resolutions and things to make this official, and we'll have it in the consent agenda at the December 8th meeting. If the board wants to do something different, that's fine as well. I guess different would mean leaving the application period open for a little bit longer. I'm not so sure we'll get any more applications, to be honest with you, but we could. But I do think that you have very viable candidates here. So from a staff standpoint, I think with Becky Gray's input, I think everybody's comfortable if the board wanted to move forward with direction on who you want to appoint for that second seat. Just one thing to highlight, there will be a staggered term for this first go around, so that you kind of get those two seats staggered. So in the resolution, we'll appoint one person to the 2-year term and the other person to the 1-year term. So just a clarification there. So any thoughts, direction on that topic?
Trustees, go ahead, Amy.
Board, I would respectfully request the 1-year term. And I would feel comfortable appointing Joseph Teipel as the second seat. His experience with startup and strategy, I believe, will serve the Housing Authority well in its year getting it off the ground. And I do want to thank the other applicant, Norma, for her amount of work to our community and for putting herself out there.
Would you like to make that a motion, Amy?
Sure.
Okay.
If no other trustees said, I guess it can be discussion after that.
Yes.
I make a motion to appoint Amy Eckstein to the 1-year term and to appoint Joseph Teipel to the 2-year term on the Chaffey Housing Authority Board.
Thank you. We have a motion.
I'll second that.
Second, Fay. Further discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, Cindy.
On that board with the 1 year and the 2 year terms, can they serve consecutive terms?
Yes.
I believe they can, yes.
Okay. That was my only question.
Thank you, Cindy. Any thoughts, Norm, Devin?
I was going to second the motion.
Okay, so we have a first and a second. Further discussion. Let's go ahead. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Philip, we have a direction.
Thank you. Excellent, excellent. All right, moving ahead, just a quick update on our BV chamber. As you know, they just went through an election cycle, so they have some new board members. And I had a chance to meet with them a little bit, and they're off and running with some a little bit new direction. They've talked about for a while now the concept of splitting up the chamber function from the welcome center. Their location there at the chapel becomes a pretty busy welcome center, especially during the summer. And they feel like it, they have limited staffing, so they feel like it takes away quite a bit from their chamber activities. And so they are looking at potential other space for their chamber staff, and possibly somewhere on Main Street, but they definitely want to stay in close to town, which makes sense. And so just a very good discussion. I expressed support from town, saying, I think it was fair to say that the town supports them as long as they're a viable operation that is providing value back to its membership and back to our business community. And so, it's really their responsibility to make, the best decisions possible for their organization. So just to kind of give you a heads up on that. And then if that plan does proceed, the Welcome Center will have pretty limited staffing. And so they kind of wanted to make sure you all were aware of that potential. You'll see in my memo, I kind of describe the concept they're looking at now with funding a part-time staff, utilizing grant funding, and then looking at volunteers to help, I guess, fill in as well. So it may be limited hours, and it may be just focused on the busiest season there. So if you have strong feelings or thoughts on that, I'm happy to take that and take that back to them. If you would like to have them at a future meeting to provide an update, we could do that as well. So I'll pause there. Any questions or comments for now?
Trustees, thoughts?
Question.
Go ahead, Cindy.
A lot of people do stop at the visitor center and get valuable information on what our town offers. I would hate to see it have too reduced of hours to not be able to offer the information that the tourists that are coming here want, desire, and decide what they want to do here. I believe that the visitor center is very important. I'm not saying that the chamber doesn't need to separate and do whatever they have planned, but I don't know how other towns do that, but I would say answering the visitor questions are important. Would that be something that, how do other towns handle it? Is it handled through the chamber, or does the town itself run the visitor center?
Yeah, what was expressed to me in that conversation was the new chair, Jay Smith from the bank, has experience with chambers in other locations, and he expressed that he has seen it primarily being operated from the town or the city as opposed to the chamber. So I think that's why they're kind of feeling out where you all stand on this. But they recognize, I guess I emphasized that I think it would be a shock if they made any drastic changes. So if it's something that needs to kind of go through a few iterations, that's probably more appropriate. Because like you said, Trustee Swisher, a lot of people do come in to get information there. But I don't think it's something that we have considered as a town taking over. So I think it's a conversation over 2021 is what I predict.
Okay.
Amy, go ahead.
Sure, thanks, Mayor. I think regarding the visitor center, that service, I believe our visitor behaviors have changed. People now use Yelp, Google, online to meet their questions for visitation. As of now, I wouldn't be in support of the town taking on manning a visitor center. I think there could be some other priorities for us to focus on. But I do believe the priority should be to transition what is currently being done now for visitor services to the Chaffey County Visitors Bureau. It seems like that is a well-funded entity that our local partners and constituents pay into. It seems like that is where the priority should be. And then in addition to that is that transition what they have now could be almost an intellectual property. I don't know if it's newsletters or mailing lists, but it would be great to transition that, and then possibly in 2021 hear from maybe Scott Peterson on what is the direction we should move in for visitation.
Anybody else have any comments?
And at least
Thank
maybe
you.
discuss it more. Cindy and I, and Cindy, I totally respect what you're saying, but I think these are two different viewpoints. So maybe trustees, we can think about it and come back together before we maybe make a final decision. Because there's two of us that are kind of on opposite ends now.
And obviously this is, I guess, more of a direction by the chamber as compared to actually where the town steps in anyway. We can see how that proceeds. But thank you, Philip, for that information, just so we kind of have a heads up on what's going on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Great feedback. And I'll correspond with them and kind of let them know that I think the board is interested in probably some further discussion, especially involving the chamber and the Visitors Bureau. So I think that's great for now. Thank you. All right. To wrap up, as you've been, as you are aware, excuse me, Chief Villers retired as of last Monday, and we did make a statement to the media and surrounding jurisdictions and agencies and everything, but we certainly recognize and appreciate the years that Chief Villers put in for our fire department, for the town, taking us through a transition into paid staff, building up much needed equipment. So, respect and we'll miss having him as part of the team. I have named Chris Green as the interim fire chief to help me wrap up the year and kind of get into 2021. I do want to highlight that my intent here is to take our time. I do not plan to name or backfill a fire chief position at this time. Spending some time talking with other agencies, including Salida Fire, Chaffey Fire, and EMS. I think this is an opportunity for us to kind of evaluate. We learned a ton this year, right? So we learned a lot through the assessment process our facilities. We've learned a lot with our current staffing. The town has been very supportive of our fire department, and we're kind of learning what our current staffing and current funding level gets us. So I plan to take advantage of that and take our time. So stay tuned. I'll be bringing more information forward, some ideas maybe to consider related to this, and happy to answer any questions about that if you have any at this time.
Trustees, do you have any questions for Philip? I want to see you behind the wheel on the fire truck, man.
With the hat.
With the hat, yes.
I want
with
to
the
see
hat.
him with the big red hat on.
Totally, we can totally make that happen.
Thanks, Chris.
There you go.
I got your
Thank
back,
you.
Philip.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
right.
Philip. We'll move on to Town Treasurer Report.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. My memo is on page 93 of the packet, and my shameless plug for the transparency website on ClearGov. The more Philip and I use it, the more we really, really like it. And we've had a couple meetings with ClearGov, and the enhancements that they make on a monthly basis are just phenomenal. So we feel like we're getting a lot of value out of it, and it is helping with the budgeting and the capital improvements process, as well as the transparency. So the total sales tax for September came in at $442,000. So based on some feedback I got from Philip, I decided to start doing these little grids. The sales tax, it shows the 19 actual, the September 20 budget, and then the September 20 actual, the percentages, the growth in each of those, and our year-to-date budget surplus of 325. So year-to-date is January through September. And so then I further broke it down, and I've been getting a lot of questions on the sales tax remote versus local data. And so I wanted to go through these two charts here. Amy's evaluation of the sales tax, the remote versus local, I thought it would be helpful to you and to the rest of the trustees to show the January through September in the first grid, and it shows for each month the 2019, 2020, and this is just town sales tax. It doesn't involve the county at all, so don't expect to add all these numbers up and they're going to tie to the top grid. And it's not like that. So, so in the local sales tax, you can see that in January and February, we were on track to have a pretty stellar year, and it went from almost 24% positive to 22.5% negative in March, which we knew that, but these numbers actually quantify that. Then you can see as we move through the months, April gets a little better, May gets a little better, June is almost stasis, it's almost the same. July we turn positive, and then we start to see some improvement through September, and then the year to date we're still behind by 0.5%. I do expect that will get a little better, and we may end up being even by the end of October, but we'll see. Likewise, the second chart has to do with the remote, and how it's grown in comparison month to month from 19 to 20. And the reason these don't go back any further is because we weren't keeping track of them, and I don't think, I think we could put in 18 and 17, but the remote wasn't called out because the legislation, the court ruling didn't happen, and it didn't start until 2019 in January. So, but you can see that the remote sales tax, from the month that it started to this January, grew by 70%. And we have pretty substantial improvements from one year to the next for the same month. The growth year to date for January through September is just under 40%. So that's a sector that is growing, and it is helping for town revenues as far as the town government goes. It is not helping the brick and mortars, the locals, but we're able to clearly track what the health of the local sales tax is. Now, it doesn't quantify between just Main Street and all the other businesses. So everything is added in there, True Value and Subway up and down the highway and everything, all the home businesses that pay local sales tax. It's not just on the pulse of Main Street, but it does bring us to a little better understanding of what our brick and mortars are doing in the town, and what effect COVID had on it. I guess I'll stop there and see if anybody has any questions.
Questions, comments for Michelle?
Michelle, thanks for doing this. It is so helpful. I've been doing a lot of research into this topic, and thank you for making this happen, Michelle. Thank you.
I took it down as granular as I could given the data that I have. So
no, I think the brick and mortars is actually compared to how other places have done, and you can't really tease out the supermarkets, just the weird buying habits of this year. But from what I understand, that's for rural Main Street, or that's not bad to break even, considering.
Yeah, it looks like recovery. We may have recovered back to a static, same as last year type thing by the end of the year. I'd be happy if we were 5 to 10% year to date over by the end of the year. That would be fantastic. But right at this point, we're just about 0.5% off of the recovery. So.
And then I think when you look at the remote, thankful to the board and the staff who responded to the change in tax laws to collect this money, because it really is, we talk about diversifying our economy, and that's exactly how I interpret that. So thank goodness for whoever made that happen.
It's a state passed the legislation and started to enforce it. It is a result of the Supreme Court ruling from South Dakota versus Wayfair, and that has had the effect of spreading throughout the country, but each state has to pass their own legislation regarding that, and Colorado was right on it, so that helped. The remainder is our expenditures over 2,000, and the regular AP checks, and if anybody has any questions, I would be more than happy to answer them at this time.
Any questions for Michelle? Thank you very much, Michelle. We appreciate everything you do for us.
Thank you.
All righty. Next is Principal Planner.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Thanks. My staff report is in your packet under page 97. This year so far to date, we're at a total of 84 new dwelling units. To give you a comparison, comparing back to 2019, at this point in 2019, we were actually at 95. So not quite as busy, but much busier than 2018 when we were at 74. So we have had 3 good years in terms of building permits. Other than that, would note that under the Planning Commission item under number 1, we did receive an application from Blake Bennett's for the vacant alternate position, and we hope to be bringing a resolution to appoint him to the Planning Commission, along with reappointing 3 existing members for their terms that are ending at the end of this year. The other 3 we'll talk about in 2021 before their terms expire. Other than that, it's been a busy year. We've seen a lot of subdivisions, and the subdivisions are listed in there that we're currently working on. With that, I will be quiet and answer any questions that you may have.
Questions for Mark, trustees? I don't suppose you right offhand know what 2017 was, Mark, for single family homes?
It was a down year in comparison. I think at the end of 2017, we were at 24. I
like that.
Have to do a little homework on that.
That sounds about right, though. Okay. Any questions for Mark? Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item is trustee staff interaction. Libby, would you like to start it off, please? You just went mute, Libby.
Okay,
there you
back.
go.
The only thing I have is one of the store owners on Main Street was asking me if there was something that could be done about a large pickup truck that is parked in front of her shop all day, every day. You know, in some places we have parking limitations, 2 hours or 15 minutes. It would just be, it's just blocking the whole view of her store. So she was asking if there was anything we could do about that.
We can have a friendly conversation. I mean, it is public parking, right? So there's restrictions when it comes to overnight parking. I think businesses have a code of unwritten rule, if you will, about you know, trying to employees and others to park off-site or another location so that there's plenty of public parking. Libby, if you want to send me any of the details you have on that.
Okay, yeah, I told her to contact you personally, and she may not have yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Sean is actually really good at those kind of conversations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good. Thank you.
Is that all you have, Libby? Okay. Speaking of Sean, what do you have for us, Sean?
Not much. Thanks for everything, you guys. You guys all have a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy the holidays, and we'll catch up with you soon. Thanks, Philip. Yeah, you point me in the right direction. I think we could probably help out with the large truck, Libby.
Thank you, Sean. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Devin, do you have anything?
Just encouraging everyone to have a happy Thanksgiving with their immediate family and just being safe. COVID is out there and intense, so really watch out for yourself and stay healthy.
Thank you, Devin. Amy, do you have something?
No, no, thanks, Mayor.
Okay, Cindy?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Norm?
I was just kind of curious if anybody knows why the north side of East Main streetlights were out last night.
Doesn't look like it.
No.
Any particular light?
The whole from Railroad East, that whole section of Main Street, the lights were out last night. I had to run down to the school and I noticed them. I was just curious if anybody knew why.
I don't, but I know Sangray's been doing some work in the alley behind the old Gun to the Dogs building, so it might be tied to that.
Okay.
We can let them know.
Thank you, Norm. Anything else?
No.
Nope. Okay, Michelle, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I want to apologize to everyone for my tardiness to the meeting. I don't know what happened. My husband made me a margarita and I was sitting there relaxing and I got a text from Philip. I'm like, oh, I'm late. So I apologize.
Well, I think I'm going to use that. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mark.
I started the Thanksgiving weekend early.
There you go. Mark, do you have anything else?
Just one thing. We'll be bringing the 2023 mile plan next meeting. So that will be before the board. I hope to keep it fairly brief. For those of you who have not necessarily gone through that process, I'll try to still hit the highlights for you. We do have some minor tweaks from 2019 and I'll cover those. Other than that, happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Mark, and you too. Chris, welcome to the club. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
I don't. Thank you very much, Mayor. I appreciate it. I don't. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Hope everybody stays safe. Check your smoke detector batteries. And that's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Paula, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, let's see. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Well, this has been an adventure. So just a couple of things. Lillian Simpson, our new deputy town clerk, started Monday, and it has been going well. Other than that, you guys have a great Thanksgiving, and be sure to count your blessings, even when we're in kind of a gloomy time some days. So lots to be thankful for.
Thank you, Paula. Dean, do you have anything you'd like to add tonight?
I don't think so. Not too much. Hopefully everybody can hear me.
Yep.
Just want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Reference Trustee Faye's question about the parking. One of the things we could look at on a vehicle like that is if it's got expired tags or is inoperable, it can be considered a abandoned vehicle. But other than that, my chief's report's in the packet. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, have a safe and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you very much, Dean. Joel Benson.
Hey, everyone. Nothing in particular. Thanks for the time that you've given me the last couple meetings talking about water. Drink lots of water. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. That's it.
Thanks, Joel. Michael, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, sure. In the spirit of the holiday coming up, I'd just like to say, how thankful I am to live in such an awesome community and to work with the amazing staff that we work with. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
And I'll just add, no different than anybody else. Everybody have a great Thanksgiving. Be careful, be safe, and be thankful. We're all here and we're all kicking. How about you, Jeff? Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Just ditto to that. Same to everyone.
All righty, take care. Next item would be a motion to adjourn. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Norm. A second?
Second.
Second row. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Everybody have a great Thanksgiving, great holiday. Take
Thanks,
care.
Mayor.
Happy
Thank you.
Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Mayor. Bye.
Happy Thanksgiving. Stay well.